Are North going to serve up something crazy on draft night? Joel's going to let us know.
Looks for Lucky on the move. Got it! Don't you want to be him? He's got 9. And North has the win.
We're only a few days out from draft day. This is North Melbourne's time to shine. We know we play all year for the draft. Here we go, North Melbourne, draft time again, and Joel is back once again. Are you excited for this draft, Joel? Are you pumped? This is your time to shine, mate. This is your Christmas day.
Oh, definitely. It's been such a interesting build-up towards this draft for us, obviously, with pick 2 being available, not necessarily shot, but available, and some of the players coming through. Really even draft class without any massive standouts, in my opinion. But I'm very excited for the night to see what trades happen for us, and if we get back into the first round, which I think there's a very good chance we will, and even the second night, which will be obviously on the Thursday, will be another really interesting thing to see if we get back in later on and see who we could pick up. Very, very interesting, deep, and going to be interesting to see what we get this year.
So before we kick this episode off, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to do some latest rumours around the draft and trades. We're going to talk about the centenary jumper, the fixture. We're just going to go through some hot North Melbourne topics. Obviously, the prelim upcoming for the AFLW as well. But just going to let you know this, Joel. The last episode we recorded, it's actually the biggest episode in Further North podcast history, with just over 5,500 listens to an episode, which is incredible because that's doubled the biggest one. I don't know what it did. It hit the algorithm, and YouTube and streaming threw it around everywhere. But you're official, mate. We've got the biggest episode together.
Oh, I'll take that. That sounds pretty good. It's if there's as many people out there as excited about the draft as I am, and we are, can only be good, I think.
I think this is a place to start with some Marnie Cohen beef between you and her. I mean, you've got the bigger episode now, mate. This is there's war.
Oh, no. Money's a good egg, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, she's all right, mate. She's all right. All right, let's kick it off then. Hit us with the latest trade news, draft news. What's happening? Any more words on trading pick number 2?
The last rumour that came through was that Adelaide has offered its future third and another future third that it's got from another club. I can't remember who at the moment.
Okay.
And pick 4 for pick 2. And we knocked that back. Apparently, we're requesting at least a future second, which sounds all right to me and sounds good. I mean, potentially with next year's way that the draft system is going to work, the points are going to be much greater in the second round than the third round. So you've got that option. And potentially you could bundle those seconds and move into another pick in this year, which I think is also a high potential if we did that trade.
Yeah, okay. So do you think North is going to be able to play its cards close to its chest and demand that second round pick and get the job done? Or do you think that's a little bit too much to pay for only moving, Adelaide only moving up 2 spots and us moving down 2?
Comparatively looking to other trades, and like next year's draft being a bit more at that stage, potentially not as deep as this one. I think it's a reasonable trade request for us. I think Adelaide potentially has trade partners. I mean, if you see early on in the draft that Adelaide has traded 2 future thirds for a future second, then you'll know what's happening. That'll be the first trade that would happen before any trades with us. And Adelaide are trying to move ahead of Carlton. There's allegedly they're going after Jager Smith is one of the rumours. So if they can get ahead of him, ahead of Carlton, that's potential. I think they're probably also looking at apparently Foss isn't in their sights as much as that and Draper, which Carlton could be looking very heavily at both of those guys, may I add.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Well, it's interesting to see what the Blues will do too with, I think we touched on this last time, but with a list that's meant to be challenging for a premiership, so it's very risky, I guess, banking on a pick 3 18-year-old who's never played to come in and be the difference between you winning a premiership and not. But once again, not a Carlton podcast, but I think that's very interesting. So with North then, is there any movement on players or anything, any different prospects we're looking at? I mean, the last 2 podcasts we've done, it's clearly Alex Taru is the guy that we seem to be really targeting. And you've mentioned a couple other players such as Draper or Foss that may be selected or in our sights. Do you see any movement on Taru? Is there anything else going on with players you think we might be linked to with pick number 2 or potentially number 4? But let's stick with pick 2.
I'm still very much in the Taru camp. I tend to think that's the direction we're going. Foss is still a very strong link to us, and the stronger links started coming to Draper because there's photos allegedly that I've seen. It's a bit tricky to know who it is, but they're showing photos apparently of him showing up to Arden Street and meeting with a couple of our managers, which may I add he probably would do, and he'd probably be around Melbourne at this stage getting ready for the draft. But it's just interesting to sort of see either head games being played or, we could it's very good reason to have an interest in a player like him. He's a very strong prospect for me. So that's an interesting one to watch. Just as a side note at that time is I was talking to one of my friends about it, Mick, and he was saying how Tambling got brought out by a couple of Hawthorn groups before that draft, and then they ended up taking Roughhead. So there's also all these head games that you play at the stage.
Probably a good call at the end of the day. So what you're telling me is Draper is the Richard Tambling of the draft.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Wow. You heard it here first, everybody.
But yeah, no, it's interesting the games that get played at this stage because a lot of the teams are playing their cards very close to their chest at this point. I still don't count out a Richmond trade for pick 6 and one of the later ones in the first round just because I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams in this setting. Yeah. But it'll be an interesting one to watch at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're Brady Rawlings. Which trade are you doing? Okay, this is final. You predicted everything last year, basically, and we expect this from you every single year now. So predict, what will North Melbourne do? What would you do, and what will North Melbourne do on the night?
If we get the offer from Richmond to move up and it involves pick 6 and a later first, I would be taking that. That'd be my first preference. Second preference would be to take Adelaide's pick 4 and future second. And my last preference would be to stay at 2. In every situation, I'd be taking Taru if he's available. I think there's a slight chance if you're dropping to 6 that he won't. But if you're dropping to 4, he'll be available. Yep. And then you can bank in later on in the draft. I think around that later picking, you could potentially get like a Jack Whitlock or a Trainer is the other one that I really like in that spot. And you could potentially be filling a few needs. Jonty Falls also occasionally linked in a few ones I've seen. So there's a few links back there at that end. And for me, it just makes sense for both sides. Richmond gets their 2 elite midfielders and jumps ahead. We get, pick 1 and 2 is better than 1 and 6. And pick 18, they're not going to be using all those, and they could still trade away a late first rounder for a future first and get into next year's as well. So I think it's interesting to watch. I think my gut feel is Richmond, there should be a deal, even though all the media is saying not at the moment. I think they'll come with an offer, but if not, I'm happy to move back with Adelaide. If not, I'm happy to take Taru at 2 personally. But Foss and Draper are very strong possibilities in that spot for us.
Do you think North Melbourne would align on your assumption just then? Do you reckon they'd put the Richmond trade as priority, then Adelaide, and then stay at 2? Do you reckon the club, from what you know, would align with that view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because they want to trade into this draft anyway. They were offering future first to get back into this draft. So I think it would make a lot of sense if that'd make the most sense at the start. Adelaide's one would be we move back slightly. We still get the play. We definitely get the player we want at that point. Or a player that we're heavily linked to, I should say. And we've got a couple of options to potentially move into this draft either early in the second or late in the first. So I think those 2 options there. I think the club would definitely be going for 2 first rounders if they could. And then I think that makes sense, the most sense, those kind of ones. So my gut feel is that North wants that deal from Richmond. If Richmond offered that, they would get that. But if Richmond offered anything less than pick 6, we wouldn't take it.
And you're kind of, so with that Richmond deal being your preferred one, you'd be comfortable risking that Taru would be there at number 6?
Yes, I think there's a chance they wouldn't be, but then I think we could get other options plus a later one. I mean, I want Taru, obviously. But if Taru went at, let's say, pick 5 to Melbourne, which I still think is a live chance, then we've got live options there to pick from. You might potentially at that stage also go another mid like a Smiley, which would be a bigger body mid that would fit into our side. And then you would get another key position forward or defender with that later pick. So you would still have the spread talent. As I said, I think North's very into Taru, and I think that'd be a small risk. I think Taru still falls to 6 at that point. But yeah, be an interesting one. And I think Saints will also come with a strong offer as well, as my gut feel on the night.
An offer to North for pick 2?
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how that looked, but I think they'd be putting strong offers on the table at that point because they're after another elite mid, and where they're sitting, they sort of miss out on the best of the mids and the paciest mids, and they sort of get the next group of them.
Would you be happy to do with a deal with the Saints? Do you think, I mean, you'd obviously they got 7 and 8. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. So, would you be happy to, what would you take? I mean, pick number 7, you'd think we'd obviously rather get that than pick number 8. Well, what do you think's on the cards from St Kilda? What other picks do they have in this draft?
Well, there is strong rumours of them offering a future first and pick 7. In that situation, I'd heavily consider it because I think that's good capital next year, though, and you could potentially move into the later part of this draft again with the capital that we would have. There's a slight chance that Taru falls there, but I think then Richmond's a very strong chance to take him at 6 if he's still available there. I don't think there's as much chance that he slides past Richmond at that point, though, personally.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, wow. Seems like there's so many different scenarios that we could be in on draft night. I think I feel like usually draft night is one of those ones where the media will pump up that there's going to be so many trades. It's going to be, chaos on the night. All this stuff could happen and nothing happens. And then we just get like a normal draft. And it feels like maybe this will be the year to break that. I know trades have happened on draft night, but I'm trying to remember blockbuster trades that have gone down on draft night. I don't remember too many. Can you think of any off the top of your head?
Well, last year's first night, there was 3 trades that happened in the first night. Just for reference, it was GWS gave up pick 8 and 17. 8 at the time was what Curtin was going to become. And that's Adelaide gave up 11, 15 and a future second at that point, which is where their future second went, which is why they don't have one. West Coast allegedly offered their future first for pick 8 to try to get Curtin, which got knocked back at the time. The other one was Essendon moved up one spot by trading their second rounder to get Caddy with the Cats, and Cats ended up with O'Sullivan. And the other one was the Saints moved back one spot and got Adelaide's future second. So that future second played into the next draft, which is also something that we could consider for what we'll do in this draft as well, potentially.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. I forgot about the Curtin one. I feel like Curtin was such a talked about, obviously with North fans, highly talked about for our pick last year. And then, going to the Crows, you were kind of like, oh, that's a weird selection. And all the talk about him being from WA, and on draft night, he didn't look super happy to go to the Crows. And I feel like his year, as much as he played a few games, I didn't really hear much about him. I feel like he's almost the forgotten higher pick of the draft last year.
Key position players always take a bit longer to develop.
Yeah.
He had a couple of nice games, and there's already rumours around about him wanting to go back home to Perth, and particularly Fremantle, but he's got another 2 years on that contract at least. So, but it'll be interesting to see if there's much noise coming out around there. So watch that space. And his brother's next draft.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm glad they keep I'm glad they put the 3-year deals in place as well. I'm pretty over people just wanting to go home all the time and giving interstate clubs advantages with players going home and things like that. I dislike all of that. And I think the contracts need to be longer personally. I mean, this is a different discussion, which we don't need to have now, but I reckon 4+ years for rookies. It gives them security, but it also gives them time to get a girlfriend, get a house, build a life over where they are, and can have a brilliant life interstate and stay loyal to their clubs. But hey, look, this is a wormhole that we won't go down today.
Go down.
All right. Is there anything else with the draft then we should be looking at? I feel like we've sort of covered it, and like we've said a lot of the time, it's not there's not as much excitement building up to the draft as I think there might be on draft night with what will happen. Nothing is a sure thing at the moment, even with the order like last year with Harley Reid going first and us sort of knowing what picks we've got. There's not as much sort of build up to it, but I think the anticipation of the night's going to be pretty crazy. Is there anything else we should be thinking of or need to know? Any little tidbits you can give us?
Not at the moment. It's more so just waiting for those first few to come through. I said North at pick 2, there's likely movement. I'd say there's more likely movement than no movement with our pick. As I said, you'll be able to predict what's happening depending on, if you see Adelaide doing a couple of trades first, there's a chance you might see North bidding on, I think there's a high chance North bid on Ashcroft to extend our time. Ashcroft is around there, but if you bid on Ashcroft, then you've got another 5 minutes on and you can go back and continue those phone calls that you might be having with other sides. So there'll be a bit of theatre there, I reckon.
Actually, I'm going to ask you this question because I don't know the answer to this, and this is something I reckon a lot of listeners aren't going to know as well. What's the purpose? I know the purpose of bidding on the player, but why doesn't the team with the number one pick bid? North Melbourne seem to always bid on players with pick 2. What's the advantage of bidding and the disadvantage of bidding? Why don't Richmond bid on the best player of the draft for pick 1?
For a club like Richmond, you want to have the number one pick in your list is a big thing. Other one, you want to show faith in the player to suggest that, you were our first pick, you're our first preference. We always want you. It just so happened that this other guy had the, just as good a season / better. So that's the kind of rationale that they have behind it. Like Richmond, like Ashcroft, for no doubt for me, is a better player currently than Sam Layla, who's likely to go number 1. I don't think they've had particularly close seasons. I think Ashcroft's had a far better season. But they'll take Layla at number 1 just because they don't want to. Yeah, they more so want to show Layla the faith in it.
Is that the only reason though? Is it just like we don't want to make this 18-year-old grumpy because he wasn't just the clear number 1 pick? Because even if that happens, and I get what you're saying, even if that happens, we all know Ashcroft is probably the number 1 pick with talent. So there's no advantage or disadvantage to the clubs. It's more just like a perception thing.
I think it's a perception thing I think at club level with the player, it's a perception thing. There's also, you don't want to necessarily aggrieve the other side a lot of the time. That seems to be part of it. The last time there only has been one where there was a bid at number 1, and that was 2020 with Ugelhagen. And Tilthorpe went number 2. Adelaide bid on Ugelhagen. That's the only time that's actually happened. I'm not sure how much the players think into these kind of things. There's also like a small pay package that you get for being the number 1 pick, particularly.
Yeah.
I think North's a very strong chance to bid for Ashcroft if we're trying to extend out our time in our bidding for pick 2 or our trading for pick 2. And I think it would be, because you could be on the phone and you wait. You just say, we're going to bid on Ashcroft at the last minute. Then all of a sudden you get another 5 minutes as, Brisbane comes up and matches the bidding, and then you're back on the clock again.
Strategic play. I like it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just wasn't sure if there was any actual benefit or something to do with the point system or anything going on there more than perception. But no.
Well, the points, the points definitely come into it for only the opponent or the rival that you're bidding on. So they already get like a 20% discount on father, sons and academy kids for however many points that pick is deemed worth. They're changing a lot of this next year in terms of how much, because essentially you can trade out to all, 5/3 is worth more than, pick 18, for example, or something like that. So that's the way that they sort of, that's why these clubs are all trading right back out of the space to, get all those, and they can put assets into next year, which is what Gold Coast did beautifully last year. And they ended up with 3 firsts this year. And so it's an interesting one to watch, but watch that space this draft, because it'll be curious when 2 gets called out.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, we'll be watching. I don't know if I'm gonna. Maybe I'll do a live, I'll record a podcast while I'm watching it. I don't know. I got to come up with something for draft night. We'll get it out ASAP. But anyway, that's for me to work out off camera. So we've had a couple of other things go down this week, to be honest. Now, the first thing that happened was the fixture. The fixture has been released for 2024, and I don't know. Personally, for me, I don't really care about the fixture very much. Or I care about the fixture, but I don't care that it gets released. Like the AFL year on year, it gets bigger and bigger, and they hype this thing up like it's just the craziest day. And the amount of social media stuff that every club did on Instagram Reels and TikTok and all that sort of stuff was really interesting to me, because I've never seen so much social media effort put into a fixture release. And lots of people seem to have a lot of opinions on it. I've got opinions on it, but I'm not really hyped for the fixture at all. I'm just like, cool, it's the fixture. Who cares? How do you feel about it? Because I felt like it was a very big thing this year, and years gone by, it's been big, but this year felt like an extra thing. Everyone was doing a little bit more social media wise. What do you reckon?
I get interested about it every year, but there's more so the games that, you want to see sort of played. They've managed to, for the past 3 years and this year coming as well, avoid Horn Francis playing in Melbourne. So first 2 years it was in Tassie. This year it's in Adelaide. then I guess the last things, I've been disappointed with the last couple. I think we're saying off camera as well, where we've finished the season in Tassie, which is really disappointing for, as a North supporter, you want to see the last game in Melbourne. This year we've got it in Melbourne, which is good. And just where you open the season, I always like to look at. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not too interested in the middle stuff. Good teams win regardless of fixture, and bad teams lose regardless of fixture. If you're counting on a good fixture to be better, you're probably in trouble to start off with, I think.
Well, let's have a quick look at some notable things about the fixture. I've just got it up on the phone here. So, opening game, March 15th, Marvel Stadium. I think that's an away game against the Bulldogs. A Saturday night opener, mate. Are we prime time?
Oh, we are prime time, clearly.
Yeah, totally right.
Bring out George in round 1 and see how he goes.
Absolutely. And then round 2, we got the D's at Marvel, which will be a home game on a Sunday afternoon. And I think the Bulldogs are an interesting one. I'm not sure where they're going to be sitting next year. I think losing, I know it's not their preferred midfield 3, but Daniel, McRae and Bailey Smith all going is going to make the Bulldogs look a little bit different and lose a lot of that core that they'd have for a while. So, I guess we don't know what's going to happen in preseason, all that sort of stuff. It's so far out, but I feel okay about that game. Look, do I think we'll win? Probably not. The Bulldogs is a finals quality team, but it's not like we're opening against the Pies or we're traveling all the way to Brisbane for the Gabba for the opening round or anything. So I don't feel bad about that, but then coming back against Melbourne and then Adelaide in week 2 and 3, I know the Adelaide one is away, but I don't know. That's not a bad start because I don't predict Adelaide to be great next year. And Melbourne, I don't think they're as bad as people think, but, there's a little bit of turmoil there too. How do you feel about the opening sort of few games there?
No, I think if we get our season off to the right start, I think it's going to be what North comes out next year. If we play like we've been playing at our best, I think those first 3 games are actually really gettable. Adelaide, though, Adelaide's actually the most concerning one of those 3 for me, being in Adelaide, and I think they're going to be better next year. Melbourne, really hard to predict. They've had a really bad off season, but they started last year well off a bad off season. And the Doggies, the 3 players that you mentioned didn't play in most of a lot of their games for a lot of it. So yet again, it's not huge losses for them, but it's still, and you are right, they're a team that's going to be contending hard, but they're really up and down. And I think we could catch them at the right time on a few of these games. And I think a good off season, we could hopefully make a better start to this year than we have the last few.
So round 5 and 6, round 5, we're playing in the Barossa Valley, wine country, against the Gold Coast Suns. Now, I know North hasn't been good for the last few years, but they've put the stinkiest game on at the smallest park. And do I like that we play at the small venues? I actually do. I think it's a cool footy experience to go and play at some of the smaller venues and getting to travel a lot. I know I've heard some Collingwood fans getting upset. They've got to travel all the way to Geelong for a game early in the season, I'm pretty sure. And it just would be so stressful to get on that bus and sit there for a full hour before you get to the stadium. But we're traveling to the Barossa, mate. How do you feel about this sort of game? And it's not a sexy game, but, we've beat the Gold Coast a few times recently, and it's down in wine country. So how do you feel about it?
Oh, it's if you're wanting to actually go away for a weekend up there, it's a nicer, considering taking, the missus and the baby up there. So that'd be an all right place up there, I reckon. And
lovely.
I actually don't mind it. A nice little getaway, I think. But I don't mind the smaller grounds in those situations. I do agree. I love getting along to the VFL and that where you can get onto the ground and you can, experience a closer and a bit more of an atmosphere where, when you're at Marvel where it's great, the big crowd, sometimes it's nice, the small one as well, where you can just hear the impacts and hear the, chatter on the field. So I don't mind that one too much personally.
Yeah, no, I like it as well. Then Friday, Good Friday footy is back against the Blues once again. I think, the Blues always seem to have our number, but as a club, I don't really rate them very highly. A team that was meant to win a premiership, getting lucky to make the 8. But another Good Friday clash where I'm hoping that we do well enough to keep it for an extra year. I really hope that we are really competitive against Carlton and can do something there because, I don't want to be playing these big primetime games and then show up like we do most years. So, look, let's hope for a good result in that one. But then the one I've got my eye on, round 8, Thursday night football. Like I said, mate, North Melbourne prime time against the old rival. Thursday night, 7:30 Marvel Stadium against the Bombers. What are your thoughts on Thursday night footy in general? And how do you feel about North on the stage?
I quite like it personally because I love footy and it's another night of footy that I can usually watch. It doesn't cross over with other games at that time. Essendon, I prefer a Friday night for Essendon North because I just think that's a good old rivalry and there's nothing better than sort of versing the Bombers. And, they've had our number for most of the last few years, but
Yeah.
I'll always bring up to my mates still that 2014 final against them. Frank the Tank, I always bring that up with them. So
win a final, then they can chat to us.
That's exactly the conversation I have with them. That's the only thing I've really got now.
That's what we've got left.
That's all we got left.
Yeah.
But no, it's I'm really looking forward to it. I think, potentially, if we're flying up at this stage and we're having like a really good, that potentially could be a really good fixture, that one. Then it could be a really big match.
So we've got the bye in round 12. We're just going to some of the notable ones here. Obviously, you did say Adelaide as well in round 7, Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. Too cold in the winter for Horn Francis, I think, in Melbourne. So doesn't like chilly things. So doesn't like to be in those environments. So have to play it over there. The AFL, his mum must have had a word to the HR department of the AFL to make sure his boy doesn't get too upset. But we all know about that Gen Z anxiety. So anyway, we go to the second half of the season here. We started back with our Western Australian road trip, mate. The boys are packing the campers up. We're crossing the desert, and we're ending up in Western Australia for 2 weeks. So one thing I'm going to point out here really quickly with this is, me and Marnie had some opinions on this sort of stuff a couple of weeks ago, but there was an interview done on, I think it was SEN with, I think, Gazy and some other person. I can't remember, but Jen Watt was on the radio and did a really good interview explaining why this benefits North Melbourne. I think the key things I took was, obviously, we're getting more home games in Melbourne coming up over the next 3 years, which is great. It reduces our travel time, and financially for North Melbourne, it's beneficial. She also went on to talk about a lot of the development of Arden Street that we're going to be doing, and how that money will go towards that. Eventually, maybe building another oval and training space there, and a small grandstand and things like that. And if anyone is sort of not happy with us going over to WA and selling those games, and I was one of those who was a bit skeptical on it, please listen to that interview. It should be, there's Ruse on Radio you can subscribe to on Spotify and Apple, and it's in there, and it's really, really good. It made me feel a lot better about the direction the club's heading. It made me feel like we're all aligned and we've got a proper plan. And she also said that LDU will stay once again. So that was very nice to hear. But give me your thoughts on this, mate. How do you feel about the trip over there? Hands Oval, which I don't know what that is, and then one at Optus Stadium against the Dockers.
I think it's a smart business move at the moment as well. I don't like this year where we've got the 2 Perth and the 2 Tassie games. But it does make a lot of sense, financially, obviously, for the club in the situation that we are, particularly. Hopefully by the end of the 3 years, we're sort of begging to be playing all the games in Melbourne because we've turned the corner and playing really great footy again, which I think is a good chance of happening. In the meantime, we get to develop, the Arden area. I think they were talking about like further out north as well, developing like more supporter base out that way, which they've been working on for a while, which is also really good. It's also good for the boys to get away together and have that sort of, I guess, come together development part and stay in that sort of field. I imagine that's going to be a really good positive in that situation. You stay there for the week. I think a few things are really positive about it, and I think the timing of it works out pretty well. I mean, you get rid of some of that jet lag. I mean, in fairness to like clubs like West Coast and Freo, they travel every second week, one of the biggest journeys. And in our situation where we're, one of the smaller Melbourne clubs, we're still in Melbourne, 12, 13 weeks odd, or 14 weeks. That's with a significantly heavier travel period. So we're doing, they're doing them pretty regular. I think staying in Perth for the week and doing that, I think it's really good, business wise, really smart. And we'll hopefully see the benefits of it over the next few years as well for the club to maintain strength and do well as it's been doing financially for a while now.
Yeah, for sure. The next fixture we'll point out here, and we'll talk about the Guernsey after, because that, what a Guernsey it is. We got round 20. Our centenary game against the Geelong Football Club. Now, 100 years of North Melbourne will be a celebration at Marvel Stadium. We don't know the day it's going to be on yet because it's the rolling fixture, but we're celebrating 100 years of North Melbourne joining the AFL VFL. unfortunate it's against the Cats. And I understand why it is, because that was our first ever game we played. But we're going to rock up at Marvel Stadium and get absolutely slaughtered while we're trying to celebrate our 100-year anniversary as a club in this competition. So how do you feel about that? I mean, I understand the significance of the Cats, but I'm not happy it's against the Cats, mate. We're not going to beat that team.
I mean, I'm a bit more ambitious than you this year, I think.
Okay.
And I'm not very ambitious usually. I don't know. I think by that stage of the year, everything going well and going right, we could be seeing a very different aspect for North. I mean, no better way to sort of celebrate 100 years than if you can actually, you know, put in a great performance against a, you know, perennially, no, that word, a very good team.
Yeah.
That word.
That's the
one
one.
of those really good teams. Yeah. So that'd be really good to, you know, show against that. No, you know, it's obviously Cats are, you know, one of the better teams at the moment, but, you know, I think there's good chance for us to prove ourselves on a stage and in the right moment and show some club culture. I believe in us this year a bit more.
All right. No, look, if I keep hanging around with Marnie, she'll completely turn me around. You never know. And to finish off this, the last 2 rounds, 2 home games to finish the year for us, which is weird. But against Richmond in round 23 at Ninja Stadium, apparently Blundstone's called Ninja Stadium now. And then a home close of the season against the Crows, and 2 potentially winnable games against some sides that I think will be around us next year. Might be the 2 wins we need to get us into the finals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously at that point.
After we smash the Cats in round 20, of course.
Obviously. I think that's a good way to finish the season. I mean, obviously the Ninja Stadium one against Richmond, I prefer that in Melbourne personally, and probably the Adelaide one over there. But that being said, it'll be good to actually finish the season in Melbourne. We haven't finished it the last 2 years, I think it was. So it's been a bit disappointing that way. But, you know, it's going to be great to actually have the game back at home for the last season. I'm very bullish this year. I'm a bit more bullish this year than I've been the last few years. So we'll see how we go this year. I think we could have a good outcome this year.
Just a hot take on the fixture from me. I reckon we've sort of been shafted a little bit in the fixture this year, like as in teams that we're playing against, not necessarily time slots and what days we play on. And I like that we finish at home and all that sort of stuff. And I can't complain with that. But just reading out the teams we played twice. So we played the Bulldogs twice. You can sort of put that either way, but, you know, they've had the number over us for a while. Melbourne and Adelaide, we play Richmond, but we play Sydney and Carlton twice, which kind of sucks. So I feel like, you know, Bulldogs, Sydney, Carlton, I don't know, just seems a little bit tough. And I feel like we've got a slightly tougher, you know, schedule than last year. Look, I'm not complaining too much, I guess. I just don't think it's quite as simple. I think the time slots are more as simple, but the actual fixtures themselves, maybe not quite as. I wish we were playing like a West Coast twice, but I guess we got Richmond and Adelaide in there. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm complaining about nothing. How do you feel?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like what is it? Yeah, have to verse X amount of sides from the same third of the ladder as yourself twice, which is Adelaide twice, Richmond twice, and Melbourne, was it twice as well? Was it the other one?
That's true.
And they were all bottom 6, I guess. And then of the top 6, I think we versed Sydney twice, and Doggies were middle 6, I believe. And who was the other one that we're versing twice?
Carlton and Sydney.
Yeah, Carlton and Sydney both. Oh, Sydney was top and Carlton was middle 6 as well. So I guess we got a bit of a spread out across them. But interesting matchups, as I said, like we'll have to verse. I mean, it's just, I think a lot of that middle ladder is going to be very close. And you know, if we verse West Coast twice, for example, or something like that, I think we'd be in Perth twice then, or 3 times. So that's probably part of the reason for that.
Yeah, no, very true. And they've put degree of difficulty 64, which I'm not even sure what scale they're measuring that on. Is that out of 100? Is that out of, 75? I have absolutely no idea. But equal 13th hardest in the league, which is very funny because we had an easy one last year and the Hawks turned out to be very good. So, look, who knows? But the fixture is what it is. Something else to come out of that fixture, centenary game, a new Guernsey. Just give me your initial thoughts. How did you feel watching the video and what were your first impressions of our heritage Guernsey?
I mean, I personally always have loved the deep V. I know that you're not a fan of it from some of the earlier jumpers, but I've always liked the deep V one, and the collar's a bit interesting. But you'd assume that for the centenary, you'd always go the blue and the white stripes. With that being said, like you want to do something a bit more older and traditional and make it look a bit more period, I guess. And I think that's what they've done with this one. I like the look. It's interesting. Durs being the model for it and that.
Mm. Yeah, well, look, handsome guy. So I don't know. I think I like it. Like the V, I don't have a problem with the V. I have a problem when there's the V and you've got something like a shield below the V. Like,
Oh, the poor shield.
Yeah, I just think it's rubbish. Like that 2007 one. All I think about is David Hale winning our leading goal kicker. But that the V with that awful shield logo we had, in the mid 2000s and sort of just be in the early 2010s as well. I don't know. I just don't like it, but I really like this one. I think we've gone the right way with the blue base. The white base one that we wore a few years ago, which instantly just think of Ben Mackay for some reason. I didn't like that one. I don't think that felt very North Melbourne, but I feel like the blue represents North Melbourne maybe more than the white does. And I like the blue base with the white V. The collar, I don't think the collar suits it, but I think the collar's really cool. I think putting collars on throwback Guernseys to make it feel old school is really cool. But do I think it looks good? I don't think so. I'm probably leaning to a slight no on that one, but I don't hate it completely. I really like the patch they've got at the bottom with the old logo, like the old 1920s logo. But I think that'll. I watched the Munro Jumpers video he made on it, and he said that is going to be on the replica, but probably won't be on the retail version. Which, if that's true, will be disappointing if they don't have that like badge down there. It would have been really cool if they put that old badge like on the back of the neck or something like that, where the GPS pouch or something went just as a little nod, or, put it on the Guernsey, like one of the patches. But I guess I've got to have Mazda in the AFL logo. But look, I like the Guernsey. I think it looks really good. It looks really clean. I like they didn't overcomplicate things. But yeah, give me some more thoughts on it. How do you feel about the look of it? Is it something you'd buy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I tend to buy the ones like this, and just as a little side note to it, I guess, is whenever I do my super coach, and because I was in the Cherries Ferries League and I won that one, I just want to point that out.
Oh, okay. Humble brag, mate. All right.
Humble brag. Yep. I had the deep V blue with the white V on it, just as my little shield. It's it's a nice color. I quite like the design. I said, you are right. Like, I mean, the collar, I like the nod, but in practicality, I think it looks a bit awkward at different stages. But that being said, it's for something a bit different. I quite enjoy it. It's one of my more favorite ones. That design, I like the design, other than the classic blue and white and the bounding kangaroo, obviously, which we all love.
Yeah, and I'm assuming I guess they haven't announced it yet, but I would assume we're using the Bounding Roo as our away again next year. I really think we owe the Bounding Roo some wins as well. I don't know.
Oh, we do.
Have we won in it? I'm trying to think of the games that we didn't play. Richmond, no. Gold Coast, no. So when was the last time we won in the Bounding Roo? Do you remember?
No, I can't remember. No, gosh, I can't remember that. I don't think we won.
We didn't wear it against West Coast either when we because the Guernseys didn't clash at all. So I don't think we wore that one over there. And I feel like the year before, I don't even remember who the wins were against the year before. But
the two Perth ones, West Coast Freo and Gold Coast at the end of the year.
Did we wear it for the Gold Coast? I don't think we wore it for the Gold Coast game. So
we did not
won in this Guernsey?
Not the new one, no, I don't think so.
Oh, God.
Happy to be corrected, though.
Yeah, wow. Well, we owe this Guernsey some wins. So if I don't want the Bounding Rule that new. I know it's obviously the 90s and that sort of stuff, but I don't want the Bounding Rule since we brought it back to be replaced with something else before we actually start winning some games in it. So I think hopefully we're keeping that run around. I mean, that should just be our way for the rest of our existence, personally. I think that the blue and white stripes, and then what I would say is the most iconic Guernsey in AFL history, and with the Bounding Roo. So I keep those two. Heritage is really cool. I think it's perfect for a heritage one. Look, for a heritage, I like the collar. I just think it looks a bit awkward, but for a one-off heritage one, I think it's cool. And I like how simple it is, because the old school ones were very simple. So a big tick from me. A little bit expensive, $130. So will I purchase it? I really want to, but I guess I'm like, I don't know. But look, we will see. We will see. I've seen some other of the throwback ones that teams have done in the last few years, and I think we've executed ours pretty well. It looks pretty clean, and I think that's important these days, without throwing silly logos and stickmen on the front. I'm not trying to point out any club in particular there. The other funny thing with the Saints, actually, you know how they brought is it called the candy stripe With the yeah, and they started saying the candy stripe's back. I'm like, I've never heard someone call it the candy stripe. Don't act like that's what it's called, and we've always known it as that. Please,
this isn't a thing.
Down.
Don't make it a thing.
This isn't a thing. Don't make it a thing. Exactly, 100%. But yeah, no,
I want
really
Stickman back though.
What number would you get on the back of it?
Oh, great question. Actually, at the moment, that is actually a big question. I mean, I'll get Taru's when he gets it.
Oh, well, yeah, Jay, he's your guy. He's your guy. You at least got to get a badge.
He's my guy. I'm taking Taru.
Absolutely. Taru's number on the back when he wins, Rookie of the Year or the NAB Rising Star. Yeah, and then that Guernsey, he'll single-handedly beat the Cats with a 5-goal performance. You heard it here first.
Oh, we'll take that. It's either that or 18 for Dawson now.
That's true. Yeah, Will Dawson guy. But I guess the throwback, I mean, I got to find whoever North's best player was in 1925, and I'll just put that number on the back.
Oh, gosh. I wonder what number would be legendary then. It's a long time now.
There you go. All right. Well, look, one more thing before we finish this up. The AFLW, we know who we're going to be playing in the prelim final, and the prelim is on a Saturday at 3:00, and I'm so frustrated because I can't go to it because I work until 3, and because working at a barbershop, I can't get leave off at this time of year, and I just put it literally at 4, 5 o'clock. We've had 5 o'clock games on Saturdays before. Why are they doing this? It pisses me off so much because I would have been there and I can't go. So look, that's just a petty me problem. Everyone else is probably stoked because it's not that late on a Saturday. But we're playing Port Adelaide. The Power had a big comeback against the Hawks and definitely the underdogs. I think we'd be pretty happy playing the Power in Melbourne with that result because the Hawks did end up being second on the ladder. So are you free on the Saturday? Do you think you'll try and get along with that one?
Oh, I definitely get along to that one. I think it'll be a good one to get down to. I think last time I went on the Adelaide game and you're allowed on the field afterwards, had a bit of a kick around, always good fun. And that was a very close arm wrestle match. Adelaide's a very good side. I think Port, when we versed them earlier in the year off like a short break in Adelaide, we gave them a bit of a touch-up at the time. So we should, you'd rather be versing them than Hawthorn, but Hawthorn, the end of that game was sensational. The Port Adelaide Hawthorn one was very close finish. Really good match to watch at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so obviously you like our chances against the Power.
Oh, we're undefeated and we managed to get the team that finished outside the top 4. Hawthorn and Brisbane are the other 2 form sides, you would argue, and the wheels just fell off Hawthorn at the end there. They really are. What was it, like 4 or 5 goals in the last quarter? I think they were 20 points coming into it and finished with 50 or 49, so they over doubled their score in the last quarter, which is what I tend to look for. Wow. But be interesting one for us. But we're such a good side in that it just gives me faith that the organisation can do things really well, and we just need the boys to follow now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I'm looking. Last time we played the Power, September 20, we won 42-6. So, it feels pretty good. Personally, I feel like we should get this one done fairly simply and cruise our way to a grand final, which I think will be the next Saturday night, which I can go to and we'll be there. So, once again, North Melbourne, if you're listening, please schedule it later next time, or the AFLW, send that to the AFLW headquarters. I'm a big W Nuffy now, and I haven't been able to go to any of the games due to work. So frustrating, but literally an hour or two later, and I could have been there. But I'll be watching on the telly at home, and I'm sure Marnie and some of the Close to a Flag boys and yourself will be there. So you'll have to do the heavy lifting and throw out some kangas for me, but I'll take the reins back at the grand final, which hopefully we make, unless there's a complete collapse or something like that. But no, well done to the girls. It's fantastic stuff. And if you're still not watching the girls play, get onto it, because you're missing some really good free flowing football, and there's nothing but guns in that side. So look, grand final, here we come. Let's hope, and I'll be there for that. But definitely get behind it if you haven't. Something we're going to end on really quickly here. Rate the Gold Coast Suns new logo out of 10.
Oh, do we have to rate? I mean, it looks like it's rating, to be honest. Just a solid football.
just a football. What's the first
That's
thing?
all it gets is.
What's the first thing you noticed when you looked at it? Because I read the thing and it's like it's a sun setting over the
Football,
water,
the
but
sun.
then there's an S and a G and a C and all that sort of stuff. I noticed the sun over the water first, but I didn't really pick up on the GSC element of it. It's a bit weird. Like, what do you think of the Guernsey? Did you see the Guernsey reveal where they couldn't get the sheet off the top of it on the Gold Coast as well, and all the fires pouring out of the ground, and the commentators like, and here we go, 1 more second, guys, and they took them about 35 seconds to get this thing off, which that doesn't describe them as a franchise. I don't know what does, but the Guernsey red on red with no outline or anything like that. It's a bit plain, isn't it?
Oh, it's very, very plain. I think it's like the S. I think it's a little bit lost on the front of the Guernsey on the red one. I think they're away strip, which is the blue one. I think they'd like a bluer one. I can't remember the color of it, but that one looked a little bit better and a little bit sharper, I thought, than the S that they had. But even the picture, like Noble didn't even look overly happy wearing it, to be honest.
Shout out to Pies Nation for posting up a screenshot of Noble in the Guernsey with the caption "Blink twice if you need help" and atted Noble in the thing. So very, very funny stuff. Yeah, the yellow one it's better, but on the players it doesn't look good in the photo because once again Munro Jumpers, he's getting a lot of airtime on the podcast today, but he put a photo of it up as on like a mannequin or just like one of those edited out mannequin sort of things, and it looked pretty nice, and the faded sort of lines on the side looked pretty nice, and then on the players it looked like a training jumper and
jersey.
And the main one with the red on red, I can't remember who doctored it up, but someone doctored up one with just a faint gold or yellow outline on the logo, and it actually looks really good. And the red on red thing, you can barely see it, and it's going to look like they're just wearing like a Monday night casual basketball Guernsey that you got from Kmart or something. It's just going to look red on the broadcast. So I don't understand, how many thousands of dollars and marketing teams and all that sort of stuff they would have employed for that. But poor. It could have been really good. I don't mind the logo. I just think if you had a bit, like, it's just boring. But if you had that faint yellow gold pinstripe line around the edges, it could have looked really cool, because I think these days it's hard. I don't like things that are too busy, and a very controversial call for the NBA fans here. I don't actually love like the old Raptors logo that everyone likes and that jersey and
you're
stuff.
A monster.
Yeah, it's just too cartoony and too gimmicky for me. Like the Pistons one is cool because it's maybe not quite as cartoony, but even that old Pistons one, I'm kind of like, it's nostalgic, but is it good because it's old, or is it good because it's good? And I think it's good because it's old. Now, I like clean, simplistic stuff and minimalistic stuff, but it can't be so minimalistic it looks like the first sketch that you put out. So, look, I guess I'm sorry, Toronto Raptors franchise and all the basketball fans out there, but yeah, I don't know. I like minimalism, but it's got to have a bit of spice too, and it definitely does not have spice.
There's no Phoenix in that one. I was just actually starting to think of the old Phoenix one in the 90s as well, with the sun coming across.
That was more simple though. A cartoon dinosaur on the front. I mean, come on. Like, it's cool because it's old. And did I have, a Vince Carter jersey of that when I was younger? Yeah, I did. Absolutely, I did. But now I'm kind of like, I think it's a bit. I like it's throwback, but it's kind of a bit lame. Even the Grizzlies one, like I like those old not the Vancouver Grizzlies Guernseys, but jerseys,
Vancouver at the time.
The logo, it's too much, and this Gold Coast Suns one is too little. If you can find it in the middle, that is exactly what you need, and I think a nice balance would have been nice.
I think from a distance it's going to be hard not to see it as just a red jersey, which I think you're pretty right on.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what it looks like on the broadcast.
Yeah, I think it'll be very strange to see on the broadcast. My Monday night basketball team has the reversible white and black shirts, and they've got slightly more design than that. So, solid options.
How many points are you dropping on a Monday night?
Oh, not as many as I used to, but doing okay.
If you're going to liken your game in the social league to an NBA player, who are you going to liken it to?
Oh God, not anymore these days. Used to be Kirilenko back in the day.
Okay.
Oh, it was Kirilenko.
Andre Kirilenko, AK-47.
This is how solid AK-47.
Wow.
That is a very solid call.
when people used to ask me that question, I had a bit of a Kevin Garnett game, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I loved hitting that little elbow jumper. I couldn't handle the ball at all. I could either hit 10 threes a game or zero, mainly usually zero. But look, strong defense, rebounds, blocks, interior D was solid. Hit the little elbow jumper. And I did pop a little fadeaway, like KG used to do, and not too bad, mate. It was ice cold, but look, who knows these days? I haven't played for a few years now, but I'm the Kevin Garnett of the Tasmanian Social League basketball system.
This does make sense to me, actually. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if that's not impressive, I don't know what is.
The old good defense and blocking and buddy work in the post.
Well, look, I could dunk if I could hold it. Like the basketball was a little bit too big. So like I could dunk a soccer ball because it had a little bit more give to it and I could get it up there and throw it down. But we're talking rim grazer dunk package here. This is not me cocking it back like VC back in the day. But yeah, I had hops, mate. I had hops for the palest boy out. I could jump. But yeah, look, I think my knee would give way now in my old age. I'm getting greys in my beard. So, oh well, those days are gone.
Well and truly. Well, for me now, it's just walking up and down the court at this point these days.
Being on the court. Yeah.
Yeah, on the court, I can say I'm playing.
Unreal. All right. Well, look, we'll finish it up there. Thank you for joining me again. And we'll try and do a little post-draft quick reaction or something like that and see if we can get something out with all your hot takes and you can give us the insight on what we've done. I'm sure North Melbourne love. Is it going to be we got Sheasel, that's the right pick, or is it going to be we got Will Phillips, that's so strange. So who knows? North like to keep us guessing until the very last second, and I think we will be again.
Well, it's going to be nice to see on the night, and it'll be good to come back after everything and seeing what we actually did, because there's a lot of options floating at the moment for us, so it'll be good to see what happens.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for coming on, mate. We'll hear from you very, very soon.
Cheers.